I recently caught up with Mandisi Nkuhlu, who is the ECIC Chief Operating Officer, on the current state of the export business on the continent.
Historically, building on the strengths of South Africa in mining, we've tended to penetrate in the mining sector, various opportunities on the continent, and because these projects tend to be located in very politically challenging environments, the value add that we bring as ECIC is that by providing political risk mitigation and communicating that capacity to the market, we're able then to influence the players to know where, there's potential and then capacity to utilize ECIC support then to be able to attract funding. So that is the big influence that we're able to have in the market. And more recently, we've embarked on country studies where we research the opportunities in a country and be able to share that with the market. And the third element that we've sort of engaged in is to build in-house capacity in terms of business development. Where now at a micro level, specific opportunities, we're able to chase them and match those opportunities to potential players in South Africa. So in terms of distribution channels, we work a lot with the banks and the development financial institutions to leverage on their existing networks for business opportunities, and other project advisors in the marketplace would then come through and bring those opportunities to us and have conversations to know where do we have capacity. So it's about communicating the capacity that we have and matching that to specific opportunities and role players in South Africa, so that there's that synergy and people go to the right markets.
Let's expand on that synergy, and we clearly understand the economic landscape that we're working in when it comes to a South African and even sub-Saharan African perspective. How does the current market environment, your analysis of it, perhaps provide opportunities for the ECIC?
I think the biggest challenge which runs across even globally, but also in Africa, because many of our economies are resource-based, is that in this low commodity environment, the resource-based projects, obviously have become more challenging, and one has to select them carefully. But it's not only that. Even when you look at host governments as potential borrowers, they also rely heavily on revenues, tax receipts generated from mining-related, resources, and they also negatively affected. So I think interestingly for us, whilst we do have strong presence on the continent, but there are many other countries where we don't have presence. So the importing countries, whether it's oil importing countries, we see that they exhibit stronger growth. You look at countries like Kenya, Ethiopia, and Ivory Coast, and many other countries. That's where we see great potential, and to look at both infrastructure projects, especially energy-related projects. We expect to see a shift towards more energy-related projects, which helps to generate capacity in those economies, and then use that as a launching pad for growth potential.
Speaking of these relationships with some of the countries you've mentioned, how critical is that? In other words, focusing on the relationships and looking beyond just quick turnaround projects which might result in the increased return on investment.
No, you're right. In most of the projects, even where government is not the main sponsor but a beneficiary of infrastructure or a mining project, it's important that they see long-term development, spin-offs arising from that project, so that they behave in a strategically, in a favorable way towards that project. I think it's important to be able to demonstrate benefits for the local economy and for the foreign investors and for other players like ourselves who are there to facilitate South African companies exploiting those new markets. So it's important to structure a win-win, solution. Otherwise, if it's too short-term, then there would be potential fallout down the line, especially when there's a debt crunch and governments have to see, which are the priority projects to support or not to support. So it's important that we choose the right projects which are relevant to that economy and have a strategic impact. so that even if there's a change of government, because governments can change after 5 years or 4 years, depending on the political system in a country, but even the new, government that comes into place or administration still sees the benefit that accrues to their economy and their own people. So these are some of the things we look at, that there must be, the project itself must be sustainable, it must be strategic to that country, it must have developmental dividends, and in that way then the financial dividends flow on a long-term basis and sustainable basis.
That was Mandisi Nkuhlu, who's the Chief Operating Officer at the ECIC.